The maritime radio crackled to life at 3:47 a.m., cutting through the gentle rhythm of waves against the Caribbean Princess. Victor Valdez's voice carried across the security channels, transforming what should have been the peaceful conclusion of a holiday into an urgent search for his missing wife. "She's not in our cabin," Victor reported to ship security officer Miguel Rivera. His words tumbled out in fragmented bursts, each syllable heavy with what appeared to be genuine distress. "Sofia gets confused when she drinks. Those railings on deck 12, they're so dangerously low." The 36-year-old investment banker's usual composure had completely shattered. Rivera, a seasoned professional who had hoped never to receive such a call, listened carefully to every detail while preparing for what might unfold. The Caribbean Princess cut through 15-foot swells in international waters, roughly 180 nautical miles southeast of Miami. Wind speeds reached 25 knots that night, creating whitecaps that disappeared into the moonless darkness. The ship maintained its steady 22-knot pace toward port, now carrying an absence where Sofia should have been. She had simply vanished somewhere between midnight and dawn, leaving behind only questions and a husband's desperate search through empty corridors. Officer Rivera immediately converted the medical bay into a command center, understanding the gravity unfolding before him. The fluorescent lighting cast harsh shadows in spaces that had seemed welcoming just hours before, while crew members began systematic searches through corridors that suddenly felt vast and labyrinthine. Environmental conditions painted a sobering picture of survival odds. Water temperature was at 78 degrees, though medical experts understand that in rough seas, survival time becomes critically limited. The ship's location placed them beyond immediate Coast Guard helicopter range, making every minute precious in ways that weighed heavily on everyone involved. Rivera documented Victor's appearance with careful attention to detail that might prove significant. The missing woman's husband wore wrinkled clothing, suggesting he had never gone to bed. Fresh scratches marked his forearms in several places, injuries Victor attributed to searching deck areas for Sofia throughout the night. "I've been looking everywhere," Victor explained to the security officer. His hands trembled slightly as he spoke, carrying the weight of fear and exhaustion. "She was drinking heavily at dinner and seemed disoriented when we returned to our suite." The account seemed plausible to Rivera, though his experience suggested the importance of verifying such crucial details through other sources and careful investigation. Emergency protocols began immediately following Victor's report. The crew initiated passenger manifest verification and conducted systematic cabin searches. Staff prepared man-overboard procedures that everyone desperately hoped would not become necessary, though the growing urgency suggested otherwise. Most passengers remained peacefully asleep in their cabins, unaware that a fellow traveler had vanished into the Caribbean darkness. The Caribbean Princess maintained its scheduled course toward Miami, transformed from pleasure cruise to search operation in the span of a single distress call. Rivera noted concerning details about Victor's timeline that didn't quite align. The sequence of events seemed unclear when examined carefully. While Victor's emotional state appeared genuine, certain specifics about the evening raised questions that would require further exploration. As dawn approached with no sign of Sofia, the situation's gravity became increasingly apparent to everyone involved. The search would need to become more comprehensive and systematic. Questions about Victor's account were beginning to surface under gentle but persistent scrutiny from experienced maritime professionals. Sofia Elena Valdez had simply vanished into the vast darkness surrounding their vessel. Her husband's distress call marked the beginning of a search that would challenge everyone involved: crew members, passengers, and family members who would soon learn of their loved one's disappearance. The emergency response continued as sunrise painted the horizon in gentle colors that offered hope for the difficult hours ahead. Search teams prepared for daylight operations while clinging to diminishing odds that Sofia might somehow be found safe. Rivera prepared detailed incident reports while managing the crisis response, understanding that each detail might prove crucial in the hours and days ahead. The search was just beginning, but already questions were emerging about the circumstances surrounding Sofia's mysterious disappearance. The Caribbean princess sailed onward through increasingly calm morning waters, carrying passengers who would soon learn that a fellow traveler was missing. Behind them lay the darkness where Sofia had last been seen. Ahead waited urgent search efforts and the beginning of questions that would prove far more complex than anyone could have imagined. Sofia Elena Valdez's professional portrait reflected a woman of remarkable determination and quiet grace. Her marketing executive colleagues remember someone who built success through careful planning and unwavering dedication to bridging cultural worlds with authentic understanding. Sofia possessed this rare ability to see perspectives that others missed entirely, recalls Maria Santos, her former supervisor, with evident affection in her voice. She could speak to someone's grandmother with perfect respect, then present to corporate executives without missing a beat. That cultural fluency represented something precious. At 34, Sofia had established herself in Miami's competitive marketing landscape through specialty work and cross-cultural campaigns. Her fluency in Spanish, English, and Portuguese made her invaluable to companies seeking genuine cultural connection rather than surface-level translation. The woman who had disappeared from the Caribbean princess had been shaped by immigrant experiences and professional ambition in equal measure. Sofia's parents had arrived from Colombia carrying dreams of opportunity for their children, working multiple jobs to provide educational advantages they had never received themselves. Sofia's professional success represented the fulfillment of those parental sacrifices. She earned her marketing degree from Florida International University, while working part-time to help support her family. Her grades remained exemplary, despite the demanding schedule that defined her college years. She approached relationships the same way she approached her career, remembers her closest friend, Angela, with thoughtful consideration and genuine care for everyone involved. Sofia valued independence and partnership in equal measure, seeking meaningful connection while maintaining her own identity and professional aspirations. This philosophy would eventually create significant tension in her marriage to Victor. Their 3-year marriage had begun with genuine affection and shared goals. Early photographs show a couple who appeared genuinely happy together. Sofia's warm smile and Victor's attentive demeanor suggesting a partnership built on mutual respect and admiration. However, those close to Sofia began noticing subtle changes in her demeanor over time. Family gatherings revealed increasing tension between traditional expectations and personal autonomy. Sofia felt caught between honoring her parents' values and pursuing her own vision of marriage and career. Sofia always said she wanted a partnership, not a dictatorship, her sister Carmen recalls with evident concern, threading through her voice. She believed marriage should enhance both people's lives rather than diminish either person. That philosophy has been creating some significant tension recently. Text messages found on Sofia's phone painted a portrait of mounting internal struggle. 3 weeks before the cruise, she confided to her closest friend about feeling increasingly isolated in her own life. "I feel like I'm disappearing piece by piece," she had written with characteristic honesty. "This trip needs to help us figure things out. Or I need to figure myself out." Colleagues had noticed Sofia's enthusiasm for work projects beginning to wane in recent months. Her usual attention to detail remained intact, but the joy she typically brought to creative challenges seemed diminished. She declined invitations to after-work social gatherings she had previously enjoyed. The Caribbean cruise was intended as a second honeymoon and relationship reset. Sofia had expressed hope that time away from daily pressures might help them rediscover their connection. She spoke about wanting meaningful conversations about their future together, conversations that had become increasingly difficult at home. Professional associates described Sofia as methodical in her decision-making process. She rarely acted impulsively, typically researching options thoroughly before making important choices. This careful approach extended to both career moves and personal relationships throughout her adult life. Her apartment reflected someone who valued both order and beauty in equal measure. Books about marketing strategy sat alongside Colombian poetry collections. Family photographs captured moments of genuine happiness from various stages of her life, creating a visual narrative of someone who cherished connection and achievement. Sofia's commitment to her heritage remained strong despite her professional integration into mainstream American culture. She volunteered with local immigrant support organizations and mentored young Latina professionals entering the marketing field, activities that brought her deep satisfaction and sense of purpose. Understanding Sofia's character makes her disappearance even more puzzling for those seeking answers. This was not someone prone to reckless behavior or impulsive decisions. Sofia approached life with careful consideration and genuine concern for others' well-being, qualities that make her vanishing all the more mysterious and concerning for those who knew her well. The woman who had vanished from Deck 12 represented so much more than a missing person case. She was a daughter, sister, friend, and professional whose absence would leave ripples of concern and love throughout her community. Victor Valdez's corner office commanded sweeping views of Miami's gleaming financial district from its prestigious Brickell Avenue address. The location reflected his success as a senior investment advisor managing portfolios worth tens of millions. Yet those who knew him personally describe a man whose professional achievements masked deeper struggles with control and personal insecurity. Victor was absolutely brilliant with numbers and market analysis, recalls a former colleague who requested anonymity for this conversation. His presentations to potential investors were polished, confident, and highly persuasive. But he seemed to struggle with relationships that he couldn't control or predict. Colleagues paint a portrait of someone driven by contradictions that became more apparent over time. Victor demonstrated remarkable analytical skills with complex financial instruments and client portfolios. However, those same colleagues noted increasing volatility in his personal interactions during recent years. The relationship between Victor and Sofia had begun with genuine mutual admiration and shared aspirations. Early acquaintances remember Victor as attentive and seemingly devoted to Sofia's happiness and professional success. He would attend her work events and speak proudly about her accomplishments to mutual friends. His marriage to Sofia represented both his greatest personal triumph and his deepest source of ongoing anxiety. The colleague continues, choosing words carefully. You could see how much he admired her, but also how much that admiration came with expectations. However, subtle changes in their dynamic became apparent to those who observed them regularly over time. Sofia's friends began noticing Victor's increasing tendency to monitor her activities and social interactions. What initially appeared as caring attention gradually revealed itself as something more concerning to those who witnessed it. These patterns of possessive behavior had evolved gradually throughout their 3-year marriage. Friends describe incidents that, viewed individually, might seem like reasonable concern from a caring spouse. Together, however, they formed a troubling pattern of increasing control over Sofia's independence. Victor would make unannounced visits to Sofia's office, ostensibly to surprise her with lunch or flowers. Colleagues noticed these visits often coincided with important client meetings or collaborative projects with male colleagues. After Victor's visits, Sofia would seem tense and apologetic, remembers one coworker, as if she needed to explain her professional interactions to someone who wasn't even part of our workplace. Social media became another arena for Victor's monitoring behavior. He would comment on Sofia's posts within minutes of their publication, often in ways that seemed to mark his territorial presence rather than genuine engagement. Friends noticed Sofia gradually reducing her online activity and becoming more guarded about sharing personal updates. Financial control represented perhaps the most significant source of tension in their marriage. Despite Sofia's substantial income from her marketing career, Victor maintained primary control over major accounts and investment decisions. This arrangement had been creating ongoing conflict about autonomy and partnership in their relationship. Sofia had recently opened her own savings account without Victor's knowledge, a small act of financial independence that sparked significant conflict in their household. Friends remember Sofia mentioning heated arguments about trust and respect following Victor's discovery of the separate account. The Caribbean cruise itself raises questions about Victor's motivations and planning decisions. He purchased the trip as a surprise gift for Sofia, upgrading to an expensive suite with a private balcony on deck 12. However, this upgrade contradicted Sofia's documented fear of heights and her expressed preference for lower-deck accommodations. Those familiar with Victor's usual gift-giving patterns found this choice particularly puzzling. He typically demonstrated remarkable attention to Sofia's preferences and comfort. The balcony suite represented a significant departure from his usual thoughtful consideration of her feelings and concerns. Fellow passengers observed uncomfortable moments throughout their Caribbean voyage that now seem troubling in retrospect. Victor displayed visible irritation whenever Sofia engaged in conversations with other travelers or crew members. He would often interrupt her mid-sentence or speak on her behalf in group settings. The ship's bartender, James Chen, recalls serving the couple throughout the week-long cruise with growing concern about their dynamic. He ordered for both of them every single time they approached the bar. Chen remembers with evident discomfort. She would sometimes quietly change her drink order when he stepped away. Small acts of independence that seemed both brave and deeply sad to witness. Other passengers noticed Victor's habit of standing too close when Sofia conversed with fellow travelers. His body language suggested possessiveness rather than affection. Several witnesses describe his facial expressions as increasingly dark and disapproving as the cruise progressed toward its conclusion. By the voyage's penultimate evening, the tension between Victor and Sofia had become noticeable to other passengers. Dining room staff and entertainment crew observed their strained interactions during meals and social activities. Sofia's brief moments of joy seemed to provoke even greater displeasure in her husband. Understanding Victor's character and behavioral patterns provides crucial context for interpreting the events surrounding Sofia's disappearance. The man who would report his wife missing was someone who had demonstrated increasing control, possessiveness, and volatility in their relationship over the preceding months and years. These patterns paint a picture of a marriage under significant strain, where one partner's need for control was escalating in ways that concerned those who witnessed their interactions during what should have been a relaxing vacation together. The ship's dining room hummed with the tender melancholy of final evening gatherings. Passengers exchanged contact information with newfound friends, making heartfelt promises to stay connected across distances and time zones. The atmosphere carried that bittersweet quality unique to cruise endings, when temporary communities prepare to dissolve back into ordinary life. Sofia Valdez appeared for dinner wearing a flowing blue dress that captured immediate attention throughout the dining room. Fellow passengers later described the garment as both elegant and vibrant, representing a notable departure from the conservative clothing she had worn throughout their week at sea. She looked radiant, remembers passenger Dorothy Martinez, like she had decided something important about herself. The evening marked a transformation in Sofia's demeanor that other travelers found both beautiful and concerning. She engaged warmly with neighboring tables, her natural charisma finally emerging after days of seeming withdrawal. Her laughter carried genuine joy for the first time during the cruise, creating a stark contrast with her husband's increasingly somber mood. Surveillance footage from the dining area captures the couple's deteriorating interaction with painful clarity. Body language experts who later reviewed the recordings noted Victor's clenched jaw and rigid posture throughout their meal. Sofia's defensive positioning suggests mounting tension that had been building throughout their voyage. The defining moment came when Sofia stood abruptly during their main course, leaving Victor alone at their table. She remained away for nearly 20 minutes, moving through the dining room with apparent purpose and renewed energy. She was talking to everyone, recalls passenger Jennifer Walsh, speaking with confidence that had been notably absent earlier in the week. It was wonderful to see, but you could tell her husband was furious. The evening's entertainment featured a Latin music showcase celebrating Cuban and Colombian artists. For Sofia, this program provided a profound connection to her cultural heritage and personal identity. The music seemed to awaken something within her that had been carefully suppressed throughout the voyage. Passengers described Sofia's transformation during the musical performances as both joyful and poignant. She danced with other travelers, her movements fluid and uninhibited. She conversed in animated Spanish with the performers, her face radiating happiness that illuminated the entire entertainment venue. The salsa rhythms filled the room, remembers cruise photographer Luis Mendez. Sofia was dancing like she had found herself again, but Victor's expression grew darker with every song. Victor's reaction to his wife's cultural celebration became increasingly uncomfortable for other passengers to witness. His facial expressions shifted from disapproval to barely contained anger as Sofia embraced her heritage with visible pride. Several witnesses noted his hands clenching and unclenching as he watched her interact freely with others. As the evening progressed, the contrast between Sofia's joy and Victor's displeasure became more pronounced. Cabin steward Maria Santos encountered the couple during her evening rounds around 10:30 p.m. while delivering fresh towels to their suite. Their door was standing partially open, Santos later told investigators. The conversation inside was clearly audible and unmistakably heated. Santos heard Sofia saying something about making her own choices, while Victor's responses came in sharp English about respect and public embarrassment. The steward quickly completed her duties and moved on, but the tension was unmistakable. The ship's various bars and lounges began their closing procedures around midnight, naturally funneling passengers back toward their cabins. Multiple witnesses placed Sofia and Victor returning to their Deck 12 suite around 12:45 a.m., though their accounts of the couple's demeanor vary significantly based on observation distance and lighting conditions. Passenger Jennifer Walsh occupied the suite directly adjacent to the Valdez cabin. Her proximity would provide the most detailed timeline of the evening's progression, creating crucial context for understanding Sofia's disappearance. Around 1 a.m. I heard voices through the shared wall, Walsh recalled with obvious distress. The conversation was definitely heated, but not yet escalated to screaming. There was back-and-forth discussion with emotions clearly running high between them. Walsh described a temporary quiet period lasting approximately 10 minutes, during which she assumed the couple had resolved their disagreement. However, the voices resumed with notably different dynamics that suggested the situation had deteriorated rather than improved. When the talking started again, it was just her voice that I could hear clearly. Walsh explained to those who later asked about that evening. She sounded frightened in a way that made me consider calling ship security. But then everything went quiet again. Walsh heard Sofia saying, "No more, Victor, no more," with unmistakable desperation in her voice. The plea carried through the cabin walls with clarity that would haunt Walsh long after the cruise ended. Around 2 a.m., Walsh heard what sounded like their balcony door sliding open, a sharp sound cutting through the wind that seemed oddly timed given the rough weather conditions that night. The timeline between 1:23 a.m. and Victor's emergency call at 3:47 a.m. would become crucial to understanding Sofia's disappearance. Hallway security cameras captured her approaching their suite door, apparently reaching for the handle with purpose rather than confusion or disorientation. What happened inside their suite during those hours between Sofia's return and Victor's distress call remains unknown. The absence of witnesses or recordings from those critical hours creates a void that would challenge anyone seeking to understand the truth about that night. The evening aboard the Caribbean Princess had begun with hope and cultural celebration. It concluded with a woman's absence and unanswered questions that would haunt all who had witnessed the couple's interactions throughout their voyage together. The last night of their cruise had transformed from conclusion to beginning, the start of a mystery that would challenge investigators and leave Sofia's family searching for answers in the vast darkness of Caribbean waters. Ship Security Officer Miguel Rivera approached the Valdez suite at 4:15 a.m., understanding that Sofia's disappearance now required methodical examination of every detail. The search had evolved from desperate rescue to careful documentation of what might have occurred in those crucial hours. The suite appeared oddly pristine, as if someone had prepared it for inspection rather than departure. Every surface showed meticulous arrangement that seemed excessive for travelers scheduled to disembark later that morning. It felt staged, Rivera would later tell investigators, like someone had very carefully arranged everything to look normal. Rivera immediately noticed bathroom towels hanging with unusual precision, despite housekeeping's documented evening service. Trash containers had been emptied, though no overnight cleaning was scheduled. A faint, chemical scent lingered, reminiscent of cleaning products that hadn't been present during the steward's 10:30 p.m. visit. Sofia's belongings remained perfectly organized throughout their cabin, contradicting suggestions of confusion or disorientation. Her jewelry displayed carefully on the vanity, makeup arranged with characteristic precision. These details painted a picture of someone whose evening had involved orderly preparation rather than alcohol-induced bewilderment. The suite's private balcony became the focus of Rivera's attention as dawn broke over Caribbean waters. The glass door stood slightly ajar, despite rough weather conditions throughout the night. Safety protocols typically kept these doors secured during high winds, making this opening particularly significant. Fresh scratches marked the balcony's metal railing, their bright appearance suggesting recent forceful contact. The pattern seemed inconsistent with normal wear or accidental damage. Rivera photographed these markings carefully, understanding their potential importance in reconstructing the evening's events. Most puzzling, Sofia's distinctive blue scarf hung from the balcony's lower railing in a manner that defied natural explanation. The silk fabric remained neatly arranged, despite documented wind conditions throughout the night. The scarf was placed, not blown there, Rivera noted in his report. Everything about its position suggested careful arrangement rather than natural forces. Technology began revealing its own concerning narrative as Rivera examined Sofia's devices. Her cell phone, found in the bathroom, contained recently deleted messages that would require forensic recovery. The deletion activity had occurred at 2:31 a.m. according to internal metadata. The ship's security system presented perhaps the most troubling discovery. A 12-minute gap existed in corridor surveillance from 2:35 a.m. to 2:47 a.m. This interruption coincided precisely with Victor's keycard accessing restricted Deck 12 areas according to electronic records. Technical staff struggled to explain the surveillance gap to Rivera's satisfaction. Such interruptions typically require equipment malfunction or deliberate interference, explained Chief Technical Officer Rodriguez. The timing seemed remarkably convenient for random failure. Understanding camera blind spots would require familiarity with ship operations typically known only to crew or experienced passengers. The precision of the timing raised immediate questions about premeditation and planning. Victor's account of the evening showed significant inconsistencies under careful examination. His claim of sleeping until 3 a.m. contradicted electronic evidence from his keycard's digital signature. The card recorded bathroom access at 2:15 a.m., suite exit at 2:35 a.m., and return at 2:52 a.m. These timestamps created a timeline that challenged Victor's narrative completely. The 17-minute absence occurred during the critical period when Sofia's phone showed message deletions. The precision of this timing seemed beyond coincidental explanation. Physical evidence on Victor raised additional questions about his account of searching for his missing wife. Defensive wounds marked his forearms in patterns inconsistent with searching deck areas for a missing person. The scratches appeared more consistent with physical struggle than careful searching through ship areas. Victor's watch showed damage suggesting forceful contact with hard surfaces. The patterns indicated struggle rather than normal activity or concerned searching. These physical markers contradicted his narrative, Rivera documented. The evidence suggested conflict rather than worried searching. Rivera documented each piece of evidence with careful attention to preservation requirements. The ship's location in international waters would complicate any potential legal proceedings, making proper evidence handling crucial for any future investigation. The air conditioning had been adjusted to maximum cooling, creating an unusually cold environment in the suite. This detail suggested someone concerned about preserving conditions or eliminating odors that might have developed during the evening hours. As evidence accumulated, the situation began transforming from a missing person case to something potentially more serious. The patterns emerging from physical evidence, electronic records, and witness accounts painted a troubling picture of the evening's actual events. Rivera understood the next hours would be crucial for preserving evidence and witness testimony. Once docked in Miami, passengers would scatter nationwide, and the opportunity to gather comprehensive statements would disappear with the witnesses themselves. The evidence emerging from the Valdez suite told a story markedly different from Victor's account of the tragic accident. Physical and digital traces suggested careful planning, possible struggle, and deliberate concealment of events that had occurred in those unwitnessed hours. The search for Sofia now included urgent questions about what had happened in that suite during the time when surveillance cameras mysteriously failed, and a husband's keycard accessed restricted areas of the ship where passengers typically had no business being. Passenger testimonies began weaving together a narrative that challenged Victor's account with compelling consistency. These voices, speaking from their own experiences of that troubling night, painted a picture quite different from the tragic accident Victor had described to ship security. Jennifer Walsh's testimony proved particularly detailed and emotionally affecting. Staying in the adjacent suite, she had been an unwilling witness to events that would haunt her long after the cruise ended. Around 1:45 a.m., I heard what sounded like furniture being moved or knocked over, Walsh recalled with visible distress during her interview with investigators. Then a woman's voice said clearly, "No more, Victor, no more." The desperation in her voice was unmistakable. Walsh described hearing silence for approximately 20 minutes before the distinctive sound of their balcony door sliding open, a sharp scraping against its track that cut through the wind outside. Multiple passengers throughout the ship reported hearing arguments during their voyage, with Sofia's voice becoming increasingly desperate as Victor's grew more threatening. Cruise veteran Dorothy Martinez, who had sailed these waters many times, recognized the troubling progression she witnessed. By the fourth night, Sofia wasn't arguing back anymore, Martinez observed with profound sadness. She was pleading. You could hear the distress in her voice even through the cabin walls. I've been on dozens of cruises, and I've never encountered anything quite so heartbreaking. Bartender James Chen's detailed testimony carried particular weight due to his professional observations throughout the week-long voyage. His careful logs documented Sofia's beverage consumption patterns, directly contradicting Victor's claims about heavy drinking on the night she disappeared. Chen's records showed Sofia's alcohol consumption remained consistently moderate throughout their cruise. She typically ordered 1 glass of wine with dinner, occasionally followed by a single cocktail afterward. The night of her disappearance marked a notable departure from this pattern. She ordered only water and club soda that evening, Chen told investigators with gentle concern. She seemed different, more alert, more present somehow. When Victor stepped away from the bar, she would sometimes quietly change her drink order to something non-alcoholic. Chen paused during his interview before adding, "These small acts of independence seemed both brave and deeply sad to witness." The ship's medical officer, Dr. Sarah Kim, revealed that Sofia had visited the medical bay 3 days into their cruise. The visit wasn't for seasickness, as others might have assumed, but for stress-related symptoms that suggested deeper concerns about her well-being and safety. She presented with difficulty sleeping, loss of appetite, and anxiety symptoms, Dr. Kim explained with professional compassion. When I gently inquired about her emotional state and personal safety, she became very guarded. Her body language suggested someone who wanted help but felt unable to ask for it directly. Fellow passengers described uncomfortable moments throughout the voyage that now carried ominous significance in light of Sofia's disappearance. Victor's possessive behavior had been evident to many travelers, though most had tried to respect the couple's privacy while feeling increasingly concerned about the dynamics they witnessed. Passengers noted Victor's habit of standing too close when Sofia conversed with other travelers, his pattern of interrupting her mid-sentence in group settings, and his visible displeasure when she received friendly attention from other passengers or crew members. Cruise photographer Luis Mendez provided visual evidence through his week-long documentation of passenger activities. His photographs captured a progression that words alone couldn't convey as effectively. Looking through the week's photos, you can see Sofia's smile becoming increasingly forced while Victor's possessive body language becomes more pronounced, Mendez observed with professional insight. The photos from that final evening show Sofia appearing genuinely happy for the first time during their voyage, and Victor looking absolutely furious. The accumulated passenger testimony created a concerning narrative of escalating tension culminating in Sofia's mysterious disappearance. The consistency of these independent accounts suggested events quite different from Victor's version of that night. Dr. Rebecca Jackson, a maritime law expert, helped investigators understand the jurisdictional complexities that would affect any potential legal proceedings. Her expertise illuminated the unique challenges faced in cases occurring in international waters. Once a ship enters international waters, legal proceedings become incredibly complex, Dr. Jackson explained during consultation with investigators. Evidence preservation, witness availability, and jurisdictional authority all become problematic. These complications create significant challenges for pursuing justice in maritime cases. The voices from the Caribbean Princess spoke with remarkable consistency about the couple's deteriorating relationship and Sofia's apparent distress during their final days together. These testimonies honored her experience while challenging the narrative of accidental tragedy that Victor had presented to authorities. Each passenger's account added another piece to the complex puzzle of Sofia's disappearance. Together, they painted a portrait of a woman whose voice had been progressively silenced until that desperate plea heard through cabin walls. "No more, Victor. No more." The testimonies revealed a story of increasing control and fear that made Sofia's disappearance seem less like an accident and more like the tragic culmination of escalating domestic tension that had reached a breaking point during their Caribbean voyage. These independent witnesses, who had simply hoped for a relaxing vacation, found themselves providing crucial evidence about what appeared to be the final chapter of a troubled marriage that had spiraled toward a conclusion none of them could have imagined. 3 days after the Caribbean Princess docked in Miami, FBI maritime investigators reached a sobering conclusion that would transform the case entirely. Sofia Valdez's disappearance would be formally classified as a suspected homicide, though criminal charges remained frustratingly uncertain due to complex jurisdictional challenges that plague maritime cases. Special Agent Maria Rodriguez, who specialized in maritime investigations, understood the unique obstacles such cases presented. The evidence strongly suggested foul play, yet significant legal hurdles loomed ahead. "The patterns we've documented paint a clear picture," Rodriguez explained to Sofia's family during a difficult meeting. "But proving what happened beyond reasonable doubt in international waters presents challenges that don't exist on land." Victor's behavior following their return raised immediate concerns among investigators and Sofia's family members. Rather than remaining available for continued questioning about his wife's disappearance, he immediately retained Jonathan Kellerman, a high-profile criminal defense attorney known for handling complex cases involving circumstantial evidence. The legal strategy became apparent within hours of the ship's docking. All communication would flow through Kellerman's office, effectively ending Victor's cooperation with authorities seeking to understand Sofia's disappearance. His public statements, carefully crafted by counsel, maintained that Sofia's vanishing represented a tragic accident exacerbated by alcohol and rough seas. Digital forensics provided breakthrough evidence when investigators recovered Sofia's deleted browser history from her laptop computer. Her internet searches in the days before the cruise painted a picture of a woman planning significant life changes and seeking help for her deteriorating marriage. The recovered search history revealed queries that told their own story: divorce attorney Miami, women's shelter domestic violence, restraining order Florida, and most tellingly, cruise ship safety statistics. These searches suggested Sofia had been researching both legal options and personal safety concerns before their departure. Financial records revealed Victor's mounting personal and professional pressures that investigators had not initially understood. Unknown to Sofia or their social circle, his investment portfolio had suffered significant losses. He was also facing potential professional discipline for questionable client fund management practices. Most disturbing, Sofia's life insurance policy had been increased to $750,000 just 3 months before their cruise, a change made without Sofia's knowledge or signature. The policy modification now appeared in a sinister new light, given the circumstances of her disappearance. Family interviews provided additional context for Sofia's state of mind in the weeks preceding their voyage. Her sister Carmen revealed that Sofia had been quietly documenting incidents in their marriage, photographing unexplained bruises and recording voice memos about increasingly threatening arguments. The recovered voice memos, found on a cloud storage account Victor didn't know about, provided chilling evidence of escalating domestic tension. In one recording from 2 weeks before the cruise, Sofia's voice trembled as she described Victor's threatening words about what would happen if she tried to leave him. "He said if I ever tried to leave him, I would disappear," Sofia's voice whispered through the recording, "and everyone would think it was my own fault." Coast Guard search efforts continued for 5 days after Sofia's disappearance, found no trace of her in the vast Caribbean waters. Maritime experts explain that in rough seas, recovery becomes nearly impossible even under optimal circumstances, making definitive conclusions about her fate difficult to reach through physical evidence alone. The cruise line's internal investigation revealed troubling patterns that extended beyond Sofia's case. Her disappearance marked the third female passenger to vanish from their fleet in 18 months, raising serious questions about security protocols and passenger safety procedures on maritime vessels. International maritime law created significant prosecutorial challenges despite the compelling evidence suggesting Victor's involvement in Sofia's disappearance. Without recovering Sofia's body or obtaining definitive proof of violence, prosecutors faced the daunting task of proving homicide based entirely on circumstantial evidence. The case highlighted broader issues of domestic violence and jurisdictional gaps that leave potential victims vulnerable in maritime settings. Statistics reveal that intimate partner violence aboard cruise ships is significantly underreported and underprosecuted, creating what advocates describe as floating zones of legal complexity. Victor's current life reflected the social consequences of suspicion even without criminal conviction. Professional colleagues distanced themselves, personal friendships dissolved, and public records showed multiple relocations as he apparently sought anonymity that continued to elude him. For Sofia's family, the reclassification provided validation of their fears while emphasizing the long road ahead in seeking accountability. The search for their beloved daughter and sister had evolved into a quest for justice that might never be fully satisfied through traditional legal channels. The transformation from missing person case to suspected homicide revealed what appeared to be careful planning that preceded Sofia's disappearance. Yet the very setting that may have enabled the crime also protected the perpetrator from the justice that Sofia's memory deserved. 6 months after Sofia's disappearance, the legal system's limitations became painfully clear to her family. Miami-Dade prosecutors declined to file murder charges, citing insufficient evidence despite compelling circumstances. Without Sofia's body or definitive proof of violence, the case remained technically open, but practically dormant. Civil proceedings offered Sofia's family their only avenue for accountability. The wrongful death lawsuit filed by her parents seeks both financial damages and public acknowledgement of Victor's responsibility. The lower burden of proof in civil court represents their best hope for any form of justice. "We know what happened," Sofia's mother Maria states with quiet certainty, but knowing and proving remain different things. Sofia deserved better, from her husband, from the legal system, from all of us who should have protected her. The Sofia Valdez Foundation, established by her sister Carmen, provides resources for domestic violence victims and advocates for maritime safety legislation. Through advocacy work and support services, Sofia's voice was silenced that night. Carmen explains with quiet determination, but her message continues through every person we can help, every life we can save.